botched attempt at data storytelling a few years ago, and here is my full story and do's and don'ts of data storytelling. When I started my career a few couple of years back as a newbie, fresh out of college, I got into a startup which is essentially an analytics startup. And my first important significant task that I was given as a entry level data analyst was to build a data dashboard. So being this so excited, curious person, was very happy to like literally put hands on working on data and then to find out insights and recommendations. But uh, little did I know it was going to be an embarrassing story for me. I was provided with data. I was asked to use Tableau. So that was my first BI tool I started working on. And once I started working on Tableau, I was so blown off by the visuals, the techniques, the tools, everything. I was so impressed and I was kind of overwhelmed, and I tried to use many visuals coming from starting from pie chart, donut chart, tree graphs, all of that. I started incorporating several visuals that were looking so cool. And the whole idea was to impress my manager. After some time, after some days, I completed my report, and I then was up to present my report. That's when weirdest thing happened, guys. I When I was presenting, I was showing up. Although in my mind, in my heart, I was feeling so proud of myself, thinking that I'm going to be appreciated. But the whole thing was ruined by just two questions. That my stakeholders or my manager asked me two questions that were, what is this all about, and so what. So these are the two questions that all the data analyst people do not want to hear when they are presenting their presentation, guys. Or if they are coming up with that question, you need to have a concrete answer for it. I was not prepared. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was kind of being so embarrassed, and I was literally on mute. I couldn't say anything. I was feeling very weird. I felt like the whole world was crumbling. So that was my worst embarrassing story ever, that in during my earlier days. And later on, I spoke to my manager and found out that a couple of mistakes that I made. And to be honest, I was carried away by the benefits of using benefits or beautification of using Tableau. So I was carried away, but after a few couple of years reading several books, data story books and data visualization books, and also having hands-on experience in developing dashboards, here are my don'ts and do's in developing data storytelling. So if you want to watch, please do like, share and subscribe, and continue. Storytelling is relevant to every industry. That is, in terms of data, it is much relevant. So the first and foremost thing I would like to mention here in storytelling is that to have a context. In terms of context, there are three things you need to consider. Three things to be considered are who, what and how. So for who, I would like to say that who is nothing but, as you might already guessed, it's the audience. You need to understand who your audience group are and identify the decision maker. Sometimes when you are a new beginner or a new joinee, you don't get to know what that person is or whom you're presenting or you're making the result or report for or the dashboard for. So it's always good to understand who your audience through your manager. Go and talk to your manager, understand who your key audiences are or who the decision makers are. So that will help you to understand what you are actually making and whom you're going to present it to. So the another very important thing to notice here is you need to understand relationship that you hold between the audience. For example, if you are presenting and you are well known in the group, or the audience who are attending the meeting already know that you're an expert in the field, then you are very much in a comfortable situation because they are going to believe what you're going to say. So that's a win-win situation. But in the same way, if at all you are a new person, or if the audience doesn't know you at all, or if you are presenting in a different group of audience or a different team, then it's a whole different scenario. You have to convince them of your presentation. Accordingly, you need to understand what level of detail has to be mentioned. So yeah, that is all about who, Second important perspective is the what. So in what I would like to say is what is nothing but what you want them to know through your presentation or through your story. One of the things that you need to consider here is the important metrics that you would like to mention, and the another important thing that you would need to consider under what is that you must be clear in making a point what your audience have to understand and make a call to action. So you should present details into what needs to be done now given what needs to be done, and that will enable your audience or the stakeholders to take the next decision or step. So that's all about what. And the final thing is how. So how is nothing but it boils down into data. So now that you answered these two scenarios, that is who and what, now you have the data to convince or you showcase as an evidence to make your point. So that's when you really start making your data storytelling. So further understand, I would like to quote here an example that I took from a recent book, which I'll be mentioning down in the screen. And in this example, the author has mentioned a simple example of what you need to consider in terms of who, what, and how. So the example goes by saying that if you imagine that you are a fourth grade teacher and you ran a pilot program which is of a social science education program. You run a survey between the pre-program as well as the post-program. So you take the survey of the students who have participated and analyze how this program has done better. So here the author has mentioned the three categories or three perspectives here in terms of who, what, and how are. The teacher has finished analyzing. The teacher found that the program was really successful and she would like to continue this in the next program. So the next coming years. So that's when she realized she needs to convince certain promising people. They are the budget audience. So in her scenario, the who are nothing but the budget committee that can approve the funding for the summer program, and what is nothing but what is the action that she's trying to mention here or she's trying to make the stakeholders or the budget committee to make to act upon. So here what is nothing but that to showcase that this program was successful with so and so criterias or metrics and would like to expand this further. So she wants the budget to expand this program further. So that's the what criteria. And how is nothing but the survey collected and the data that she uses as the evidence to showcase the success of the pilot program. So this is a simple example, guys, for you to understand how you can start with your data storytelling. And let's get started with the next one. Now that we have the first important thing about data storytelling, now you can look into the visuals. So I started back, I didn't know what visuals were useful for when. In terms of visuals, I would like to say is that there are several common visuals and some of them can be simple text, a trend line chart, a scatter plot, bar chart, and so on. So in terms of visuals, every visual have its purpose. So you need to understand which visual is right for which data and use it accordingly. Or the first important thing here is the line chart. Line chart is basically used for trend, or you want to show occurrence of certain things within a time range. Second important thing is the scatter plot. Take into consideration, find a relationship between two variables, and here I could give an example of linear regression or linear regression wherein you always try to understand the relationship between a predictive variable and predictive variable, whether it's a positive or negative. So that's about scatter plot. And then the bar chart. The bar chart is very important one because this enables us to understand every category in terms of how each category perform. For example, a quiz appliance does better in sales or a digital product better in sales. So in terms of bar chart, if you have a categorical data and you want to showcase how each perform better, is the bar chart. And the very important thing I missed is the text. The text is nothing but the important numbers that you show in the first section of your data storytelling is called text. Here you only want to showcase one or two numbers that you want to showcase and catch the eye of the audience. So that's all about text. and the final thing is table. So I have seen in several dashboard or in several reports that there are tables provided. Tables are provided in terms of showcasing or comparing several metrics, like if you want to understand month over month, year over year, or if you want to understand if there has been an incrementals between these metrics. So those kind of metrics are useful when you put in a table format. So these are the important things you need to consider in terms of visuals. Next very important thing is the elimination of clutter and making things simple. Now let me go back to my experience where I made everything complicated. I thought things were cool and I was so excited and carried away with visuals that Tableau has. So I used all the data, I used all the visuals that I could ever use. The first and very most important thing is make your data visualization simple. And the second most important thing is eliminate clutter. Eliminate clutter in the sense you can think of certain things that you can see if your visuals are better in terms of title, color, fonts. Some companies or some teams have their represented fonts or team oriented fonts that they have to use, so be careful about it. And the another important thing is the x-axis and y-axis. Always consider the relevant ratio that needs to be provided in your data, because it is always easy for us to look into a graph which has a systematic y-axis and x-axis rather than a cluttered one, right? So that's an important point need to be considered. Last one which I would quote here is the labels and colors. Always understand that your team or your company will have their own designated colors or labels to be mentioned. Please do get in touch with your experienced people or managers to get in touch to know what needs to be done, and be aware in advance so that you don't embarrass yourself. And the final thing I would like to mention is that once you have all these components ready, that's not it. You need to narrate a story. So the first important idea that I learned over reading several books on data visualization or data storytelling is that there is a single concept called a 3-minute story. A 3-minute story is nothing but you need to set up the stage and show their main goal and the solution, further give evidence. So these components have to be incorporated when you showcase your story for the first 3 minutes, or else your audience or the stakeholders will not be interested in carry on the discussion. So to explain further, it is important for you to tell your audience that give a brief intro about the data visualization or the report that you're going to present. And second thing is that you need to make them aware of what your main goal is. And the third thing is that you need to provide your recommendation in terms of how you can solve the problem, and finally why it is relevant for the team. So these components are very important. Another very important thing is the storyboarding. So now you have all the small components, right? Once you have all the small components, you need to bring all together in a storyboard format. And if you are a person who already been working in Tableau, you know there is a section called story where you can bring in lot of dashboards together, lot of text together, and showcase what you're trying to convince or what you're trying to convey through a story format. So the final thing will always be a storyboard format, and present your story or narrate your story in a way that the audience understand and can make a decision, and or rather I would say call to action. So that's all about it, guys. I hope this session was useful. This is the complete picture of what data storytelling is all about, and there is nothing further you need to understand. If you can excel in these topics or in these components of data storytelling, I'm damn sure that you will be the data visualization expert where your team or your team members will reach out to you. So I hope this video was useful. Please do like, share and subscribe, and comment in the section, comment in the video, and let me know how your data visualization journey is so far, and if any doubts, please let me know in the video comments. Thank you. Bye bye.